Welcome, everybody, as we prepare to kick off the Michigan Wolverines 2023 season. It has been a long offseason, that's for sure. And a big welcome to our new subscribers. Thanks so much. I hope you all enjoyed the hype video that we put out this year. If we get enough increase in viewership and subscriptions, we will go ahead and try to pump those out more frequently. As per usual, we're actually going to look at the season as a whole before games kick off for the Wolverines. And so where does that leave us looking? And I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about the Michigan Wolverines record for this upcoming season. But one quick thing before we talk about Michigan, typically we just leave it to the Wolverines, but there is one thing that I have to take a moment to say, and that is welcoming Adam Sandler into the Big Ten. Yes, I'm talking about Luke Fickell. If you have never heard it before, I would be very surprised. But Luke Fickell looks very similar to that great comedian Adam Sandler. And so if you have never heard that before, you're welcome for bringing that up to you now.
It's clean. It's cold. Now that's what I call high quality H2O.
Oh! But on to Michigan Wolverines. I think it's safe to say that everybody is hyped for the Michigan Wolverines 2023 season. So many things are looking good. But before I jump in and just say undefeated season, no losses, Big Ten championship, national championship game, whatever, I want to take a step back and just look at things with more perspective. They do have a lot going for them. So many returning players, all the coaches that are coming back for the Michigan Wolverines, which is rare in the Harbaugh area because so many of them get snatched up so quickly, either in college teams or in the NFL. And they are riding a lot of success, not only on last season, but also all the way back to 2021. They have a good thing going and they have figured something out for them. So things are looking really good for this season. And honestly, there aren't many games that throw up red flags for the Michigan Wolverines this year. While the end of last season was extremely disappointing and extremely uncharacteristic for Michigan, honestly, it might have a little bit of a benefit for how things go for this season. As I talked back in 2021, when Michigan lost to Michigan State, that may be keeping them on track to help them win throughout the rest of the regular season that year. TCU might prove the same with the loss that they handed to the Wolverines for how this season goes. Because let's face it, when you don't lose, you can sometimes get blinders on and forget what you're focused on and lose track and lose games. Honestly, that's kind of what happened in TCU, but credit to TCU, as I said last year, they beat Michigan straight up. That's it. I imagine, and it's already been said, that these players and this coaching staff are keeping that game in mind, and they're probably going to be thinking of it week in and week out to not forget and realize that if they don't play smart, that they could lose any one of these single games. Let's face it, that's happened through the years for Michigan where there are those unexpected losses and they can come out of nowhere. So keeping that TCU loss in mind is probably going to be good for them. Another thing to always keep in mind is that Michigan always has a target on their back. This year, it is bigger than ever because they're coming off of 2 Big Ten championships and going to the college football playoff 2 years in a row. Michigan hasn't had this much spotlight since probably the late 90s or maybe early 2000s. And so everybody is wanting to look to hand Michigan their first regular season loss since all the way back in October of 2021. So they want it more than ever. Of course, you can never overlook MSU and OSU. I always say rivalry games, you never know what's going to happen. I don't care if the team comes in and they have 0 wins. You don't know how those players and that coaching staff are going to come out and perform on that field. So those are always 2 games to watch. But honestly, I think the biggest game for the Michigan Wolverines this season is going to be on the road playing Penn State. I know last year was pretty easy for the Michigan Wolverines to take them on at home, but they are looking even better this year. A lot of people are very high on them, but also the level of some of their athletes is above normal. So it's a little bit unpredictable at this point on how good Penn State's actually going to be. They always start off pretty high at the beginning of the season, and they find a way to filter down a little bit lower in the rankings. But this year, they might be able to do more. So keep a close eye on Penn State and how they'll be doing. Honestly, outside of those three teams, I don't think there are very many matchups that are going to throw up red flags. I will, however, point out that there is going to be an interesting game because first-year head coaches always kind of seem to have some ambiguity around them, and you never really know how things are going to perform. I mean, if everybody recalls how well Brady Hoke did in his first year compared to his following seasons, there is sometimes that higher performance that you'll see because you don't know exactly what you're going to walk into. And that's really the possibility of Nebraska this year with their new head coach, Matt Rule. I'm not coming out and thinking that they're going to be doing a lot to contend in the West this year, but they might have the opportunity to catch some teams off guard and get some unexpected wins. So be watching that game in late September. So what are my thoughts and predictions for the season for Michigan? Going undefeated for the regular season is no easy task. Doing it 2 years in a row is even more difficult. I'm actually sitting here with my notes saying that I was predicting a one-loss Michigan team in the regular season, but I'm struggling with that. Really, Penn State is looking like that team, except for Michigan dodged the bullet by not having to play a night game on the road against Penn State. So I'm having a difficult time thinking that they'll even take a regular season loss. I'm going to go ahead and come out and say undefeated regular season for Michigan. I know that's ambitious. I know I just said about how difficult that's going to be, but we've seen the success that they've had for the previous 2 seasons. I also predict that they will make the championship game. However, will they win that game? My prediction for winning that game is that it won't happen. Because let's face it, each step of the way, since Harbaugh has been the head coach at Michigan, the next level, those big games, the first time always results in a loss. 2016, number 3 Michigan at number 2 Ohio State resulted in a loss. The biggest game against Michigan State in 2021, number 6 Michigan versus number 8 Michigan State, resulted in a loss. 2 college football playoff performances by Michigan, both results in loss. The only thing that they've seen success in is the Big Ten championship game. So being on the national championship level, it's leaning me towards thinking that they won't be able to finish that off as well. That's just the trend for Michigan. I hate it as much as you do. But here's something that I do have to say. I know that they can have an undefeated regular season. This team and coaching staff is capable of that. I know that they have the capability of winning the Big Ten championship for 3 years in a row. This team and coaching staff is capable of doing that. The same thing does go for the national championship game. However, I think it's going to be a new level of difficulty for them. Not saying it won't happen. I'm just predicting that this is not that year. It's very difficult for me to say that because looking at it, it's saying if it's not this year, then when? Because this is the best looking team since I don't even know when for Michigan. What? 2003, 97? The list goes on. So if it doesn't happen this year, then the question is when. But those different stages of big games just do not see wins happening. And it's difficult to say that it's going to change. That's what they focus on. That's what they focused on last year, but then they didn't even get there to be able to have that opportunity to compete in the national championship game. So as of right now, that is what I'm looking at as a real possibility. I don't want it to be that way. And what's great about all this is I'm not determining anything. It's the players and the coaches in the locker room that are going to determine what happens and what are the results. So we're just going to have to wait and see how it all turns out. I can't wait until kickoff next weekend. I know that. Well, I'm also looking forward to this weekend because any college football is good college football, in my opinion. So I'm going to be watching the game Saturday. I hope you all get a chance to enjoy your weekend and watch some football as well. We'll be back next week with the preview for East Carolina. And as always, until next time, go Blue.